and the truth shall set you free. There is great power living in your truth, living in your vulnerability, living in your authenticity. Living in your queer truth allows you to stand on the firm ground of who you actually are. It is so important for all of us to discover and uncover the different hidden parts of ourselves, to really expose and see who and what we are, how we love, how we think of ourselves, how we dress, how, what pronouns we want to use, what genders we are going to be used for us. And for some of us, that takes a while. And some of us, it takes a great deal of fear to go through before we decide. It was 44 before I kissed my first guy. I was 44 years old before I even allowed to think to myself that I was gay. And my whole life, people were always saying that I was. I was always like picked out, of the crowd of that. But interestingly enough, the moment I became okay with it is the moment everybody else in the entire world became okay with it. And now I just don't care. I know for some of us in the LGBTQIA community, they're still very triggered by terms. For me, you can call me queer, you can call me fag. I don't care what you call me because I know who I am. And that's a truth that I stand on, that everything else springs out from. I often wonder, those who come at the LGBTQIA community and say, who you are is wrong, or how you express, or whatever. What's the alternative? What would they rather us do? Would they rather us marry or couple with someone who is not of the gender that we want to be with? Would they rather us live in as a person that we are not? Is that what they think that would be best for us? And how has that turned out so far? Not so great. And others are questioning why all of a sudden all these kids are expressing themselves in a different way. Well, it's the same thing as why you're now seeing more people not living in these lifelong marriages, because women have choices now that they did not have before. And yes, a lot of people are trying to take away a lot of choices that women have, and that is crazy. But if you think about it, it wasn't until the 1970s before a woman could even have a credit card in her own name. That is just insane. So of course, a woman of the 1930s, 40s, 50s, even 60s, and maybe probably even the 70s as well, did not know that they could become divorced, become their own, go out, branch out on their own, and take care of their own kids and things of that nature, because it was hard for them to even start a career. And now that women have more empowerment and are able to do more things, although they still make less than men, although they're now that they're able to do that, they have more choices, so they're making the choice that's right for them. And that's the same with people that are younger or even older that are deciding that they're in the wrong, they're in a different gender, or maybe they're kind of an in-between gender, or that they love someone who society tells them that they should not love. It's because now we see those opportunities. When I was a kid, we didn't have those role models for LGBTQIA heroes. We didn't understand what those were very hidden. And sometimes nowadays, or even really nowadays, we have to go back into history and we have to look through the subterfuge. We have to look for that hidden language of our heroes, because they couldn't always come right out. When you look back and you find out that Abraham Lincoln had two very close male friends that he would sleep in the same bed with for years. Now, if you're a man of means, and even if you have a great friend, you're still going to want to sleep in your own bed, because, two straight dudes, probably back in that day, probably a little smelly. But I'm just going to say, I'm going to put it out there. So if you had the means to do it, you probably would sleep in your own bed, unless that was someone that you were affectionate with. So I think suffice it to say, I'm going to go ahead and come out for Abraham Lincoln. I believe he was at least bisexual. So anyway, that's just my own personal opinion. Y'all can say what you want to with it. But the core thing I really want to get to with this video is the idea that queer truth has immense power. And I truly believe that that is why we're getting so much flack from the world that's trying to push us back down into that can again, because they can sense the true power, the true potentiality that the queer truth has in it, that has innate in it, that once we understand or allow ourselves, accept ourselves fully who we are, and begin to express that in the world, that's something that's out of the heteronormative society. And what is that? It's this scary unknown. Monsters dwell there, as they would say in the maps, before all of the oceans were discovered. There was this really scary thing of like, are we going to fall off the end of the earth if we go, sailing off into the horizon? Because people always have this fear of the unknown and want to stay safe in that. And it's funny how some people are triggered by us going out into the unknown. Well, that really has nothing to do with you unless you feel that you're not authentic to yourself. So when somebody comes at you and tells you that you need to change and come back into the fold of this, start looking at them and wondering, I wonder if you need to come out over onto my side. Perhaps that's what it is. You're not being real or authentic or vulnerable with yourself, and you're triggered because I am. And so therefore that means that you probably should too. So start learning that your queer truth is, your power is in your queer truth. The more vulnerable and authentic you get about your queerness, the more you're able to express that, the more you explore it. Perhaps you'll explore it and you go a little bit too far and you need to go back. It's about investigating and finding out those different parts of yourself. But as you do, as you step into that true queerness, that true truth for yourself, I believe you're going to find your sense of power. I know I have, and I know others that have as well. So start investigating, start asking questions, start asking yourself, and start finding out, are you queer? And how queer are you? I hope that helps. Have an amazing day, and love, peace, release. Oh, by the way, if any of you identify as a queer man, and that can be gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, questioning, and you're interested in finding out about the idea of courage, if you go to facebook.com/groups/queermen, I'll have the link down below, you can join a private Facebook group that's called Queer Men Living Courageously. And it's about finding out how to have that courage to be true and authentic and real, so we can love ourselves and go out and love the world and get this thing shaken. It's time. It's time for the queer people of this planet to gather together, dwell or get into our real queerness, find out who we are, and change this world for the better. So that's our mission. I do believe. I know it's mine. Love, peace, release. Bye.